For 3 years, a terrifying mystery has haunted this small community. People have disappeared without a trace, and the disappearance rate has skyrocketed. No one knows why. Attempts to find answers have only led to dead ends, leaving a constant fear in everyone's hearts. But then, the terrible truth finally comes to light. And let me tell you, it's more than just a mystery story. It's the most vivid nightmare you can imagine. Before we get into the story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious told through stories, you've come to the right place. This is what we do: take you to a world of the bizarre and the unexplainable. We post new content every week, so if you're interested, consider liking and subscribing. Don't forget to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a thing. And now, join me in this scary story. One morning in January 190765, Jacques Poul, a 12-year-old boy, suddenly sat up on his sturdy straw bed. It was still dark. The small room was plunged into silent darkness. His breathing was ragged. Sweat was pouring down his forehead. His heart was pounding as if it wanted to escape from his chest. The nightmare still haunted him. In the dream, something terrible had chased him. He ran with all his might, trying to escape, but there was no escape. The monster came closer and closer, its menacing silhouette looming over Jacques until it caught him. It was at that moment that he woke up, as if he had escaped an invisible trap. Jacques raised a hand to his face, realizing he was crying. He quickly wiped his tears away, not wanting anyone in the family to find out. As the eldest son of 8 children, Jacques had to take on the role of the big brother, strong and trustworthy. But that didn't stop people from calling him the coward. The teasing started a few months ago when he was defeated in a wrestling match by a boy who was much smaller than him. Jacques cried in front of the whole town. The scene spread quickly, and from then on, everyone in the village started calling him the wet chicken. Even Jacques' younger siblings didn't miss the opportunity to mock him. In the small room, the dim light from the rare moonlight filtered through the window. Jacques looked around, making sure that all his younger siblings were still sleeping. He didn't want to wake anyone, and he didn't want anyone to see his weakness. Jacques' family lived in a small village in the Jebon department, in the south of France. The village was cold and poor, where harsh winters often claimed the lives of weak children, and summers brought devastating epidemics. For the survivors, toughness is not only a desirable quality, but also a condition for survival. Jacques, with his gentle and peace-loving nature, is not suited to the tough lifestyle of the village. He does not want to become a strong farmer or a brave warrior like his father and brothers. Instead, Jacques longs to become a priest. His uncle, a priest far away, is his only source of inspiration. Every time he has a chance to meet his uncle, Jacques reads books and learns the knowledge he loves. Those are rare moments that help Jacques escape the harsh reality of the village. But those big dreams seem to be incompatible with his poor life. Jacques knows that he can hardly escape the heavy shadow of this village. However, he still holds on to the faint hope that one day his life will be different. As he lies back down on the bed, his eyes wide open, staring up at the bare wooden ceiling, the darkness was still there, and thoughts of tomorrow came rushing back. The work was waiting, the taunts were waiting, and the fear never left him. Jacques closed his eyes, but sleep refused to come. As dawn broke, a faint light filtered through the window. One of Jacques' younger siblings rolled over, waking the room. Jacques sighed, preparing to face another day of no change in his harsh life. Jean, then only 8 years old, jumped up from his simple bed as the morning light filtered through the cracks in the window. "Get up, wet chicken," Today, we have to take the sheep. Jean excitedly shook his older brother, Jacques. Jean's older brother, who was not a morning person, just muttered something, frowning at his little brother. But Jacques, no matter how annoyed he was, never lost his temper with Jean. It was a strong bond between the two brothers, mutual protection in an uncertain world. They both got out of bed quickly, ate some bread and cheese from last night's dinner, and hurried outside. The village was strangely quiet this morning, a quietness that Jacques had grown accustomed to. In recent days, everyone in the village had been more closed off, limiting their trips unless absolutely necessary. But Jacques' family had no choice. Their sheep needed to be led out to the fields, and their survival depended on them. Under the overcast winter sky, the brothers opened the gate of the sheepfold, using sticks to guide each animal out of the pen. The constant "bee" of the sheep mingled with the sound of footsteps on the dirt path leading to the pasture. Jacques and Jean followed carefully behind, constantly glancing around. In recent months, news of the Beast of Gévaudan had become a haunting sight throughout the region. Jacques recalled every horror story he had heard. Just a year earlier, on June 30, 1764, the first attack had occurred. A 14-year-old girl had disappeared while tending cattle and was found torn to pieces in a field near her home. At the time, everyone thought it was a wild wolf. But then, just a few weeks later, 2 other teenagers suffered the same fate. The attacks did not stop. That summer turned to autumn, then winter. The number of missing and murdered children continued to increase. People began to believe that this could not be just an ordinary wolf. The Beast of Gévaudan. That name was being used throughout the south of France. Hunting parties were formed, scouring the forest, but no one had caught the creature. Today, like any other day, Jacques and Jean could not let fear get in the way of their mission. Leading the sheep to pasture was necessary to provide food and warmth for the family during the cold winter. The sheep, familiar with the path to the pasture, gradually fell into a familiar rhythm. One after another, Jacques and Jean followed behind, their eyes constantly scanning the surroundings, from the dense bushes on both sides of the road to the empty fields ahead. Jacques suddenly put a hand on his brother's shoulder, signaling Jean to stop. They both silently watched a dark figure flash by in the distance at the edge of the forest. Jean held his brother's hand tightly, his eyes filled with worry. "It's just a fox," Jacques reassured, but he was not sure. The two continued to lead the sheep, each step heavier with the fear growing in their hearts. The whole of Gévaudan was haunted by an invisible ghost, and the two boys knew that any day could be their last. But for Jacques and Jean, family was everything. And if they had to face the beast, they would do it together. Jacques and Jean continued walking, following their flock of sheep step by step. The dirt road leading into the distant forest seemed like an endless stream, surrounded on both sides by vast fields glowing in the afternoon sunlight. The air was quiet, only occasionally ringing with the small bleating of the sheep. The two boys, with tired feet but still determined hearts, looked back at their village. The scene appeared peaceful, the small houses bathed in the sunset. But in Jacques and Jean's eyes, the village was only a memory, a place they had just left to face the challenges that lay ahead. Behind them, on the dirt road, appeared 5 other children. They were accompanied by 2 larger flocks of sheep, the footsteps and bleating of the sheep blending together to form a natural symphony. As the group of children drew closer, Jacques quickly recognized a familiar face, the skinny red-haired boy who had beaten him in the village not long ago. Jacques felt his face burning with shame, memories of the afternoon of being mocked and laughed at. He lowered his head, avoiding the red-haired boy's gaze, but he could not help but feel uncomfortable. As the group of children and the sheep merged, everyone fell silent. No one wanted to talk. They all understood that they were together not because of friendship or fun, but because of a common fear, the Jebin beast. This terrible creature had spread terror, killed many children, and made the forests deadly. In the silence, only footsteps and anxious sighs could be heard. The path led them into a large forest, where the light was blocked by the thick canopy of trees, leaving only small rays of light filtering through the leaves. The atmosphere in the forest became gloomy, and the fear in each child's heart seemed to increase. Jean, walking close to Jacques, gently touched his brother's shoulder and whispered, "Jacques, tell a story, please." Jean's words carried a slight tremble, showing his anxiety. The other children, although not saying anything, looked at Jacques with hopeful eyes. Jacques smiled slightly, feeling a little proud. Storytelling was something he had always loved and was good at. "Okay," Jacques said, his voice trying to keep calm to reassure everyone. As the sheep emerged from the forest, they saw a vast green meadow stretching to the horizon. In the distance, at the foot of a small hill, a marshland glistened in the dim light. Jacques stopped, turned to the sheep and the children, and began his story. He pointed to the marshland and said, "See those big rocks over there? Look at the biggest one. But don't be fooled, it's not just any rock. It's actually a door. If you move the rock, underneath it will be a portal to another world." The children, though initially hesitant, gradually became drawn into Jacques' story. He described a magical kingdom that existed beneath the swamp, filled with mythical creatures and treasures never seen before. Jacques sat down on a rock, his eyes shining as he told the story. Jean sat right behind him, listening quietly. The other children formed a circle around Jacques, their eyes filled with curiosity. Even the red-haired boy who had teased Jacques was silent, unable to take his eyes off the storyteller. For a moment, everyone seemed to forget their fear of the Jebon beast. The grassland stretched out, the sheep grazed peacefully, and Jacques' story was like a veil covering the tension and fear. But deep down, Jacques knew that when the story ended, reality would come rushing back, and with it, the fear that everyone was trying to avoid. Under the soft golden light of the sunset, Jacques' story seemed to have reached its dramatic climax. The children, who had been completely enthralled by the story, were now immersed in the imaginary world that Jacques had woven. But the temporary peace of the forest was soon broken by a strange sound. A twig snapped nearby, as if signaling danger lurking in the darkness. Jacques shivered slightly, his eyes darting towards the sound, but all remained silent. Immediately afterwards, the red-haired child, who had always been a troublemaker in the group, suddenly stood up without a word. He rushed towards the meadow, leaving everything behind. Jacques was initially angry, thinking that this child was deliberately interrupting to ruin his story. But then a foul stench, like rotting flesh and blood, began to fill his nostrils. Jacques turned around, feeling a surge of fear. Where Jean, Jacques' brother, had been sitting, only his familiar wooden stick lay cold on the ground. Jacques couldn't believe it. How could Jean have disappeared without anyone noticing? His eyes darted everywhere, searching for any sign of his brother. The terrified screams of the children behind him startled Jacques. He turned, and instantly his heart stopped. Standing on the crest of the hill behind them was a gigantic creature, 12 meters tall. It stood on two legs, its entire body covered in ragged black fur and angular bones protruding from its skin. Its joints creaked as it moved, as if its body was too large for its dry skin. Its bloodshot eyes glowed in the evening light, and in its sharp claws was Jacques' brother, Jean, struggling weakly and desperately. The creature was the beast of Jebon. The stories Jacques had heard of a brutal monster that had only been a whisper in his memory now appeared clearly before him. Jacques froze in place, unable to move, though his mind was filled with only one thought. Run! Run! Get out of here! But something strange happened. While all the other children were running away in fear towards the meadow, Jacques could not lift his feet. Something inside him was screaming, "Don't leave! My brother needs me!" Jacques shouted at the children running away. "Come back! Don't leave! I have a plan!" His strong, resounding voice stopped everyone in their tracks. The children turned their heads, shocked by the determination in the voice of the boy who had once been considered weak. A few, with curiosity and trust, turned back to Jacques, while the red-haired child continued to run away. Not caring about anyone, Jacques stood straight, his eyes steady and determined. He whispered, but his voice was full of confidence. "We will save Jean, but I need all of you to help me." Under Jacques' guidance, the children quickly formulated a plan. Each was assigned a specific task, from attracting the beast's attention to using sharp branches as makeshift weapons. Despite their fear, they all agreed, convinced by Jacques' leadership and courage. With the plan clear, the group of children charged up the hillside, with Jacques leading the way, holding his brother's staff firmly in their hands. The beast, though aware of their presence, paid no heed, believing that these children could do no harm. But that complacency was its fatal weakness. A child threw a rock, hitting the beast right in the eye, causing it to roar madly. Jacques quickly took advantage of that moment, using his staff to strike straight at the creature's legs, knocking it off balance. The other children rushed forward, using their crude weapons to attack the beast's joints. Despite the pain, the creature tried to hold Jean in its claws, but the collective strength of the children made it impossible for it to hold Jacques' brother. Finally, Jean was freed. Jacques and the children immediately helped their brother run down the hill. After a struggle, the Jebon beast, badly injured, could only watch as its prey escaped its grasp. Once safe, Jean, exhausted, looked at his brother with admiration. "You did it, Jacques. You are no longer a timid child." Jacques just smiled, filled with pride in knowing that he had conquered not only the beast, but also his own fear. Jacques saw the creature lift Jean from its arms, gently bringing his brother into its mouth. Its eyes revealed nothing but determination, as if everything around it, including the children, were just small details that were not worth worrying about. The creature turned, starting to move at a faster pace. Using its long, powerful arms, it grabbed onto nearby tree trunks, pulling itself forward with surprising agility. Step by step, it moved away from the group of children and plunged deeper into the dense forest. Jacques could not stop. He gathered all his strength, ran faster, and followed the creature step by step. He could feel sweat running down his face, his breathing quickening, and his heart pounding. "Hurry up!" Jacques shouted to his friends, who were also running hard behind him. Rage, fear, and the will to save his brother kept him going, even though his legs were aching. Slowly, they closed the distance between them. Jacques raised his hand to signal. "Now split up, surround it," he shouted. The children quickly obeyed, each holding a stick tightly in their hands, running around to block the creature's path. Once they were close, the group began to pound the stick down on the creature. Strangely, however, the blows did not seem to cause any real damage. The creature did not show any signs of pain, nor did it retreat. But even so, it was forced to change direction every time it was hit. Jacques realized that their goal was not to hurt the creature, but to force it to move in the direction he wanted. "Don't stop! Keep hitting!" Jacques shouted, trying to keep his friends focused. The creature still held Jean tightly in its grip, moving through each difficult step. Occasionally, it waved its arms as if to shoo the children away, but the giant arms seemed to only hinder them and not pose any real danger. The creature's sole focus was still on Jean. Jacques' plan was progressing. He and his friends forced the creature to a high hill. At the top of that hill, a deep and dangerous swamp appeared, a place Jacques knew would be the perfect trap. Before that, Jacques had told everyone a story that this swamp was not only a place of death, but also a portal to another world. It was a lie, but it was also his last hope. Once the creature was pushed to the edge of the hill, Jacques signaled for the final step of the plan. The children spread out in a fan shape at the top of the hill, each holding a stick tightly in his hand. "Pull it down the hill! Quickly!" Jacques shouted, his eyes red. The group rushed forward in unison, pushing and hitting the creature with their sticks, forcing it back step by step. Although the creature struggled vigorously, it could not resist the pressure from all sides. Finally, with a decisive blow from Jacques, the creature lost its balance and slid down the hill. It fell into the deep swamp, water splashing everywhere. Jacques stood at the edge of the hill, staring at the swamp where the creature was sinking. Jean lay still in its arms, motionless, blood dripping from his body. Jacques screamed, but his voice was drowned out by the rushing water. He ran down the hill, ignoring everything. With all his remaining strength, Jacques tried to pull Jean away from the creature. In the last moment, before both the creature and Jean disappeared under the murky water, Jacques reached out and grabbed his little brother's small hand. Jacques tugged, trying to hold Jean tight, even as they both sank deeper into the mud. He didn't know what would happen next, only that, dead or alive, he would never leave his brother. Jacques remembered how, just a few weeks ago, he had almost lost his life in this deadly swamp. He had felt the danger of the way the ground swallowed his feet when he had accidentally stepped into the soft soil. Luckily, he grabbed a large protruding rock and pulled himself out. Jacques knew that if it weren't for that rock, he would have been swallowed by this quicksand like natural trap. And now, that very spot had become a trap for the Jebin beast. The huge, muscular beast took the first step into the swamp. Jacques and the other children had deliberately led it to the deepest and most dangerous area. As soon as its feet sank in, the ground opened like a huge mouth, sucking in the beast's massive body. It struggled, its powerful arms trying to pull itself out, but to no avail. In a panic, the beast released Jean from its mouth and turned to look at Jacques. Its eyes, bright and angry. Jacques trembled, almost losing his courage when he realized the intelligence and familiarity of this creature. The beast's face was not that of a normal wolf, but rather that of a human, full of emotion and awareness. Jacques could clearly feel that he had been tricked. "I will kill you!" His eyes screamed a threat. The beast stretched out its arm, suddenly slashing across Jacques' stomach. He fell to the ground, blood gushing out, but luckily he was still at a safe distance. In the chaos, another child took the opportunity to rush forward, pulling Jean out of the swamp. The beast struggled more violently, trying to grab Jean, but it was completely trapped. The children quickly lifted Jacques and Jean up, then ran across the meadow towards the village. As they approached the dirt road leading to the village, a group of villagers with weapons appeared. News of the beast spread thanks to a red-haired man who had managed to escape and report the news. The villagers, full of determination, ran towards the swamp to kill the trapped beast. Jacques and John were taken into the house, laid on the bed. The village doctor quickly arrived, treating both of them. Jean, though badly wounded, survived after the beast crushed part of his skull. Jacques, though in pain, was fortunately spared any internal injuries. The beast's final screams echoed from afar, then gradually died down. An era of terror had ended, leaving unforgettable scars in the hearts of those who witnessed it. The story of the Jebin beast is one of the most thrilling and mysterious legends of the 18th century. Jacques, one of the few survivors of the creature's attack, became a symbol of courage and fortitude. The Jebin beast continued to terrorize for 2 years after it escaped from the swamp, and on June 19, 1767, a hunter finally confronted it in the deep woods. With a decisive shot, he brought down the beast, bringing its body back to the village. The creature's body was startling. It resembled a giant wolf, but details of its anatomy, from its unusually large bones to its ability to walk on 2 legs, left experts unable to determine what species it belonged to. An autopsy revealed even more horrifying clues. The creature's stomach was filled with human body parts. This confirmed the stories of brutal attacks. With over 100 victims, the appearance of the Jebin beast was a bloody chapter in French history. Jacques, thanks to his bravery and miraculous survival, became a hero known throughout the country. His fame spread far beyond France, reaching as far as Boston, Massachusetts. His story spread widely and eventually reached King Louis XV. The king, impressed by Jacques' courage and determination, invited him to the palace. There, Jacques was favored by the king and was given full tuition at a prestigious school in northern France. From a young, despised farmer, Jacques becomes a symbol of resilience. His new life in northern France opens a new chapter where he can pursue his passion for reading and writing, a dream he has always dreamed of. If you are passionate about mysteries and horror, explore more books focusing on the strange, the dark, and the unsolved mysteries, promising a unique and unforgettable experience.